On this day 3 years ago, on November 17th, 2017, one of the most controversial video games of all time was released. Battlefront 2 was a game that reshaped the gaming industry when it comes to loot boxes. After one of the most disastrous launches in video game history, Star Wars Battlefront 2 was then able to pull off one of the greatest comebacks in video game history. So to say that this game had an eventful lifespan would be the understatement of the century. Now this was of course all off the back of an already controversial predecessor with 2015's Battlefront. But Star Wars Battlefront 2 had been shaped up to be the ultimate Star Wars game, blending a mix of multiplayer with single player, bringing together heroes and villains from all eras of Star Wars. Maps, starfighters, reinforcements, space battles, you name it, this was built up to be the ultimate Battlefront game. And in some ways, it absolutely delivered, but in some, it failed miserably. Battlefront 2 is a game that has meant a lot to me personally. There has been times that I've loved it, there's been times that I've hated it, but one thing is clear, 3 years on from its launch, it's that the perfect, the ultimate Star Wars game was definitely hidden away in this game somewhere. And just before it could hit that final stride that it was always capable of, it was cancelled. This game kept the drama right from the very start, right to the very end. I've decided to take a look back at this game from the very start before it even came out to today, right now, 3 years on from its release. This is going to be a long ass video, so sit back, relax, and let's take a trip back on the journey of one of the most controversial and eventful video games of all time. So let's kick it all the way back to April 2017, when a leaked Battlefront 2 teaser trailer made the rounds of the internet where it showcased elements of the single player campaign, the multiplayer, but most importantly, Clone Wars content. I remember this leaked trailer doing the rounds of the internet and it was such an exciting time. EA went and released the trailer officially shortly after the leaks, then the Battlefront 2 hype truly began. It's pretty crazy to go back and watch old videos on YouTube and see just how hyped and hopeful people were at this time. Obviously, they didn't know what was to come when the game launched. But this game was shaping up to be everything that people wanted after the first Battlefront game from DICE. It was going to have space battles, it was going to have Clone Wars, it was going to have a fully fledged single player campaign, more content, and the marketing for the game gave everyone a reason to believe that this was the one. The ultimate Battlefront game. And a couple months later, various content creators and game changers got their hands on Battlefront 2 for the very first time at EA Play 2017. And that was the debut of the gameplay, and it looked so different to the first Battlefront. I remember watching videos of the gameplay over and over again, and it was so impressive. But then in October of 2017, the beta dropped for those with access to it, whether you had pre-ordered, etc. Now, I was one of those people, so I got to play the hell out of this beta, and I had so much fun with it, and so did countless other people. But there was one big problem.
Pay-to-win model in place.
Pay to win! Pay to win! Loot boxes!
Pay to win. Pay to win.
Seriously, is this game going to be pay to win?
Loot boxes and the progression system were intertwined in a bad way. You could barely earn any credits in the games that you played, and it didn't matter whether you finished at the top or the bottom of the leaderboard, the amount of credits that you got was the same, and it was a stupidly low amount. You would have had to grind for an absurd and unreasonable amount of time to unlock barely anything through the loot box system. It was really bad. So what ensued was a ton of bad press and attempts to get things somewhere on track for the launch of the game. But for most people, it was just too late. Flash forward to the 9th of November of 2017 and Battlefront 2's early access had launched. And Battlefront 2 was without a doubt 100% pay to win. Loot boxes were so integral to the progression of the game, and it was just a total nightmare. Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker were not playable at launch because you had to spend a stupid amount of time to even unlock them in the first place, which caused even more issues. Players even went and done the math, and it was going to take around 4,528 hours of game time or $2,100 to unlock all the base game content. And then of course the infamous Reddit post came out that just made things 10 times worse, and things got way out of hand. And to top it all off, the single player campaign got very mixed reviews. While the cutscenes of the campaign were flawless, the story of the campaign betrayed its main selling point almost straight away, and it was repetitive and safe. Despite of all of that though, the game was visually a masterpiece. The graphics and the sound design were flawless. It was the best a Star Wars game had ever looked in video game form. Seeing Phase 1 clones running through the rain on Kamino, or seeing Darth Maul flip his way through Naboo, it was just perfect. But everything great was just overshadowed by the loot boxes and the progression and just the general controversy. Gamers gave Battlefront 2 the stiff arm and said, nope, not happening, this isn't right, and all of this negative press raised a major talking point in the gaming industry on the ethics of loot boxes in video games. And it helped change the industry forever. It was a huge blessing in disguise, really. So then DICE were forced to pick up the pieces of the game and try to salvage their years of hard work. It was a disastrous launch that still to this day, 3 years on from its release, people still associate the game with. Not the fact that it had one of the biggest and best gaming comebacks in history, but the stigma that followed the game is just so entrenched into people's minds that that's what this game is known for. And you know what, I think that's kind of sad seeing how DICE have just done such a great job pulling the game apart and putting it back together again in a more consumer friendly way. But anyway, December rolled around and the Last Jedi DLC came to the game, bringing along with it Finn and Captain Phasma as well as Crate, and I still think this is visually one of the best maps I've seen in a Battlefront game. But from there on out, it was all about repair work for DICE, and then things went really quiet. Months and months had passed and nobody really knew what the hell was going on with Battlefront 2. Where was this live service people were promised? In reality, things went as quiet as they did because DICE were revamping the game's progression system, which they did. And they also managed to release Ewok Hunt in that time frame, a new game mode in a time where players were just in dire need of substantial content. And I remember this announcement very well. So many people were not happy and it seemed like DICE were just severely out of touch with the community. But the first actual major update and DLC to come to Battlefront 2 did the game absolutely no favors at all. The solo DLC came to Battlefront 2 to go alongside the film, and it's not what fans wanted. It brought a new map, Kessel, to the game as well as a bunch of hero skins, and it brought back Extraction, a very popular game mode from 2015's Battlefront. The problem was, nobody really cared about solo content, so the announcement didn't go over very well. But everything changed at EA Play in 2018 when Dennis Brandval took to the stage to tell players what they've been doing behind the scenes and what is to come. And this was the announcement that turned a corner for Battlefront 2 in a big way.
So I'm excited to confirm that Battlefront 2 this year will be going deep into the Clone Wars.
The announcement of General Grievous, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker and Count Dooku, along with Geonosis, was the announcement that fans had been waiting for, and it was the true first big step that Battlefront 2 took in becoming the game it is today. This was the moment that changed everything. Players were interested again, new players were coming to the game in anticipation, and it was a really exciting time. Now, the next few months that followed were incredibly quiet. We just had this massive announcement and then it was silence until October 31st when General Grievous came to Battlefront 2. This highly anticipated hero was the first hero added to the game since the Last Jedi DLC on December of 2017. It was just great to have a new hero and just General Grievous in the game, although he was a bit of a buggy mess. But on the 28th of November 2018, Battlefront 2 took its biggest step forward yet.
The balance of the Force has been shaken. The Clone Wars have begun.
Obi-Wan Kenobi and Geonosis were added to Battlefront 2, and this was the update that changed everything for the game. Not only could we spam hello there with Obi-Wan,
Hello there.
But we could take part in a huge battle on one of the most iconic Clone Wars planets in the Star Wars universe. The Geonosis trailer gained millions of views on YouTube, which was massive at the time, seeing as how dead the game had become, and it really marked and cemented the biggest step forward that Battlefront II had taken since its launch. Within a year, DICE finally had Battlefront II back on track to becoming the game that it was always supposed to be, but this was only the start of things to come.
Young Skywalker.
So that brings us to 2019, which was undoubtedly Battlefront 2's biggest year. The introduction of Count Dooku was very well received, but the addition of the highly anticipated Anakin Skywalker was what everyone was waiting for. The developers said that he would be powerful, and they were not lying, as he practically broke the game for months, but nevertheless, the fact that you could run around as Anakin Skywalker with Obi-Wan by your side in the middle of a Clone Wars battle was just the sort of moment that you're after when you're playing a game like this. The breath of fresh air that these new heroes brought to Battlefront 2 cannot be understated. Not to mention, the addition of hero skins and Clone Wars skins for infantry also helped bring a lot of life back to the game. The player count for Battlefront 2 was back up to the numbers it saw on the launch of the game over 1 year later, and things were on an upward trajectory. And it was as if Battlefront 2's past could finally be put behind it once and for all. And things were only going to get better on March 26th of 2019 with a highly anticipated update which introduced Capital Supremacy to Battlefront 2. Capital Supremacy was the new large-scale mode that was meant to be a modest attempt at the old galactic conquest mode from the original Battlefront games. It didn't quite live up to that reputation, but it was a solid enough attempt. And it really helped broaden the Clone Wars battles that could take place within this game with huge ground phases and capital ship takedowns. And in the months that followed, we saw more small updates come to the game, which included skins and a new reinforcement, the highly anticipated Droideka. This was all after the controversy with the whole crashed speeder debacle. If you know, you know. But on September 25th of 2019, Battlefront 2 again received one of its best and most defining updates yet.
Hello there, I am Dennis Branwell from the Star Wars Battlefront 2 team. In this community update, we'll outline new content arriving this month, including a new planet, character, and new ways to play.
The Felucia update that came to Battlefront 2 was one of its best, bringing a more obscure Clone Wars planet in Felucia to the game, and the beauty of the Frostbite engine was in full swing with this new map. Along with Felucia, one of the most iconic and beloved clones came to the game in the form of the Clone Commando. This was something fans had been waiting for a really long time. Battlefront 2 was really in full swing with its redemption arc here. Bigger content creators began playing the game again, and it was starting to fall into the mainstream a little bit more that this game was barely recognizable from its launch counterpart. And this leads us to November and December of 2019. These were without a doubt Battlefront 2's biggest months yet. Jedi Fallen Order was released to the public and was a huge success and was received very well by players, so naturally once people were done with Fallen Order, they thought they'd come and check out Battlefront 2. And for the most part, people were really surprised with just how far this game had come since launch. The stigma that followed the game since its launch was starting to fade into obscurity once people realized just how much work DICE put in to help bring this game back from the dead. And things just got bigger and better in December of 2019 as Battlefront 2 cashed in on the hype of the rise of Skywalker with one of its biggest updates yet. The Rise of Skywalker update brought a new planet, Ajan Kloss, to the game, as well as the announcement of BB-8 and BB-9E, two very obscure heroes that we never thought we would see in a Battlefront game. During this time, Battlefront 2 was also completely rebranded with the Celebration Edition of the game, which surpassed EA's sales expectations and helped bring a stream of new players to the game. Battlefront 2 at this exact moment was officially at its peak. It had come so far from where it was 2 years prior, and it was barely recognizable anymore, in the best way possible. And 2020 continued on that hard work and momentum from 2019, with the BB update coming to the game on the 3rd of February. This was the update that finally saw BB-8 and BB-9E come to the game, as well as the new capital ship maps for the sequels. And then just 3 weeks later, another update came to Battlefront 2, which saw 2 new reinforcements, new weapons, and added the original trilogy to co-op, a very popular smaller game mode. But little did players know that this was going to be the second to last update of Battlefront 2's live service. Things were absolutely flying for Battlefront 2. The game no longer felt stale, the content was relatively consistent, DICE were delaying content instead of rushing out broken content, like things were good. Then it was finally announced that Scarif would be coming to Battlefront 2. Scarif was very popular in Battlefront 2015 with its final DLC, so fans were excited to see it come to Battlefront 2 in a whole new light. Now, this was around the time that the world went a little bit mad once the virus pretty much destroyed our normal way of living, and the repercussions of that meant a lot of delays for the Scarif update. This was of course due to the developers at DICE being forced to work from home, and it was really frustrating for players. And around this time, people started to get a little bit skeptical on if Battlefront 2 was going to be coming to an end. But most people just laughed that idea off, as the game had come so far and endured so much that there was just no way that they'd cancel the game when it's arguably in its prime and best state ever. But we were very, very wrong.
With the Battle on Scarif update, we've realized our vision with Star Wars Battlefront 2.
The release of the Scarif update would be the final update for Battlefront 2. 2.5 years of repair work and ups and downs was finally going to be coming to an unceremonious end with the Scarif update. Which, ironically, Scarif was also the update that brought Battlefront 2015 to an end, so there was that. The weird thing is, the cancellation of Battlefront 2's live service wasn't where this story ends, as the months that followed were actually pretty crazy, with fans absolutely outraged. The developers over at DICE were notably upset that they were no longer going to be working on Star Wars anymore, despite what was said in the trailer announcing the game's live service coming to an end, where it says, "Our vision is complete." But in reality, it was far from it, as developers mentioned content that they wanted to bring to the game like Ahsoka Tano, which they were never able to do. Instead, they were forced to go all hands on deck in the development of a new Battlefield game. It really sucked, as I don't know who was actually more devastated that Battlefront 2 came to an end, the fans or the developers. However, the players then started a petition to reinstate Battlefront 2's live service, which gained a fair bit of traction, gaining over 100,000 signatures. Then shortly after that, rough player number statistics for PS4 suggested 2 months after the game's live service had concluded that PlayStation 4 had millions of new players. And it just raised further questions on why the hell was this game's live service brought to an end when so many more games with lesser player bases endured the pandemic just fine. It just seemed like a terrible decision, and to be honest, to this day, 7 months later, it still was a terrible decision to bring Battlefront 2's live service to an end. When you look at it like this, the basic roadmap of Battlefront 2's live service was a terrible launch, a quiet period to fix the progression system, finally some good content that brought the game back to life and allowed it to hit its prime, and then it was cancelled. That's the basic timeline. Pretty crazy, really. Now that takes us to today. Fans just sit and wait, hoping that by some miracle Battlefront 2's live service comes back, or we get an announcement for a Battlefront 3 sometime soon. Because it's just nothing right now, which seems like it's just so unnecessary to have such a big period of downtime, especially considering how popular Battlefront 2 was when it came to an end. Star Wars Squadrons, which was released at the start of October, has already started to die off because it was such a niched game and just didn't appeal to a lot of players. It's just such a shame that Battlefront 2's journey started so poorly, and in the home stretch, things couldn't have been going better. Then it just gets killed off in its prime. It's a pretty sour ending to what was a great redemption story for one of the most controversial video games in history. Looking back on Battlefront 2, I have to say that despite the sour note the game left on with its cancellation, this game is without a doubt one of the best Star Wars games that we have. And I think that a sequel is just a complete no-brainer at this point. It's just a matter of waiting for the right person to make the right decision, which hopefully they come to their senses soon and do. But this game just offered so much to so many Star Wars fans, including myself. I was able to build my channel into a full-time job because of this game, and I'll be forever in debt to it for that. And I think the game coming to an end really helped highlight just how much this game meant to so many people. The Battlefront community is unlike any other gaming community that I have ever seen. It's passionate, it's loyal as hell and will stick through absolutely anything, and it's underappreciated by the ones that make the decisions. I don't think Battlefront 2 could have pulled off what it was able to do without such a loyal fanbase awaiting eagerly to breathe new life into the game once the developers released content. If any other game was put in Battlefront 2's situation at launch, I highly doubt that it would have ever soared to the highs that this game did. It really is one of the craziest video game stories that I have ever seen. But that is going to do it for this video. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments your favorite memory of Battlefront 2. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars gaming content. And be sure to check out the video I posted yesterday talking about Battlefront 2015 on its 5-year anniversary. But I appreciate you all dropping by. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.